listening versus hearing.
Listening versus hearing.
Instead of looking for our chance to jump in.
I've got thoughts going through my head.
I have to say the thing that's going to fix it.
And my mind is thinking ahead.
Next right thing.
To be the place.
Set that intention to be fully present with those that you're talking to.
Where people feel like they can belong.
Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching Truth Be Told with us. It's like an exciting thing for us. So I'm grateful that you're watching this. So tonight we're talking about the idea of, bear with me for just a second. We were talking about the building blocks of authenticity and connection. And this week we're talking about listening versus hearing. And you might be wondering, like, what does that have to do with New Thought? What does that have to do with spiritual philosophies and principles? Well, it has a lot to do with it. If you're familiar with CSLs, you've probably heard the term a lot, a world that works for everyone. What does that mean? And is that really something that we're working towards? Well, here at Soul Evolution Collaborative, we are absolutely working towards that. And we know the way to get into a world that is more possible like that. We're talking about everyone, not just a world that works better for me. So as we come together and try to create better relationships with those around us, all the people around us, whether they're our friends and allies or whether they're people that we find disagreement with, we all share this world together. So as we learn to create better ways of being in the world, more authentic, more genuine, open, and compassionate for all people, then that's how we start to really create the reality that we choose or would like to experience here. So absolutely, these ideas all month long, they may not sound like spiritual principles necessarily, but they are, because everything is spiritual, right? We're all spirit. So tonight, listening versus hearing. Let's learn a little bit about the difference and see how we can apply it in our own lives. So sit back, enjoy this episode of Truth Be Told.
So this week we're talking about listening versus hearing. So the whole theme this month has been the building blocks of authenticity and connection. So where does listening fit in to this, and how is it different from hearing? So for me, listening is this deep, sort of focused attention and presence with someone. Oftentimes we hear what someone's saying, but we're not really listening. We may be thinking about what we're going to say next, or listening with this intent of responding. So we may be thinking, oh, okay, when this person stops talking, this is what I'm going to say. Or we may be thinking about a to-do list, or we may be thinking about what we're going to cook for dinner, or we may be thinking about a million other different things. And so hearing is more, for me, this kind of like physical sensory thing of hearing the words. But listening, for me, has this really deeper understanding, this deeper quality. And it's only achieved through this really intentional presence, when we create this space where others can step into and be able to share their thoughts and share their emotions and know that they're being seen and heard. And so I can only do this when I'm really present, just allowing the person to show up as they are, without any need for me to respond in a certain way, or any thought in my awareness of trying to say the right thing or do the right thing. And so it's in this idea of listening that the other person can really step in to their authenticity, and we can really connect in a real and powerful way. Now, prior to stepping into my ministerial shoes, I was a psychotherapist. And so I spent all day listening to people. At least I thought that's what I was doing. But this skill really got put to the test when I had to sit with a patient who had the inability to speak. And so for an hour, I read her lips. So it was in that moment that I realized, oh my God, all these years I had been with people and just hearing them. My thoughts would go here and there. I would be concocting what I was going to say next, or that next right thing that was going to change someone's life. But it was in that moment, that experience, that I really understood what listening was. And it was just this focused attention on being present with the person and allowing them to show up. And because I had to listen so intently and focus so intently on every single word, I had this kind of focused attention of my mind. And I was able to show up in this new and powerful way that I had never been able to show up before. And from that moment on, it really informed how I listened. I wasn't listening with a response in mind, or listening for some sort of way that I could fix a situation, but instead just being present. So the challenge, what is the challenges in this conversation of hearing versus listening? So the challenge, at least for me, has been this understanding that when I'm interacting with others, that I have to say the next right thing, or I have to say the thing that's going to fix it, or my mind is so scattered that I'm here and there and everywhere. You know how life tends to clutter our minds. And so the challenge is to get really present. And sometimes presence is our greatest challenge, but it's the most integral aspect of this understanding of listening. And so that creates this opportunity to step into this space of true presence, listening, our focused attention on sitting with others, and not only in their experience, but also sitting in our own experience. So there's so many opportunities to really hone this skill of listening. And it opens up so many doors to foster this idea of authenticity and connection.
I don't think we need to waste any time. I'm just going to come out and say it, that listening is a spectrum. We get there every week anyway. I'm just going to say at the beginning.
It is a spectrum for sure.
Yeah, there was just something about how you went through the difference between hearing and listening, and then there's like a depth of listening. Like it was almost like hearing is an activity, but listening becomes this like process. And there was this depth to it of like, oh, I can listen for something, or I can listen to, or I can like, it's almost like listening with. I can listen with you.
Right.
Yeah, that was kind of profound. Good job.
I agree. Like sometimes when we're talking, it's almost like we're listening to ourselves. So when you say listening with somebody, it is. It's kind of like you're both listening to whatever it is that you're pulling out of the ethers.
Go
ahead.
No, I was going to say, and we can apply this. Often I think, maybe this is just me speaking for myself, but often how I show up and listen with others is how whatever pattern that looks like is the same pattern that shows up when I'm listening to spirit or listening to my own intuition. So if there's some sort of forced something, I'm trying to like if someone is sharing with me and I'm like, yeah, you need to do this, that kind of interrupting sort of like frantic energy, that sometimes that then translates into my ability to hear or listen to spirit or my own intuition. It becomes this kind of really interesting frantic energy. And so I think it does parallel. And so this listening has this, for me, it has this like really deeply spiritual quality of not just this conversational listening, but this kind of deep sort of like soulful, like intuition, inner wisdom listening as well. And I think that we can bring that to our interpersonal interactions. If we kind of really hone that in our own kind of individual spiritual practice, then we bring that same energy to our interpersonal like interactions. And I think they're so closely linked. If we can really tap into what that feels like, that I think that it will deepen our interactions with other folks. And then, of course, fostering this connection and authenticity and vulnerability and all the things that we've been talking about this month.
And then I think listening then becomes not a static thing. You know, that it is a skill or a habit that we can develop and work on, which I think is probably different than, like, that's probably a new idea for a lot of people. I think we're not taught listening skills beyond, you know, maybe we're taught hearing versus listening in some way, but listening just becomes, you know, I think in the general public, listening is, did I process what information, like the task that was just given to me, did I process that information? But even sitting, you know, like while the clip is playing, I'm sitting here in the background listening for, all right, what am I going to say about this?
Yeah.
Or even listening to the clip that's like, hey, this is how you listen poorly. Now, I mean, it's a little, you know, this is a slightly different scenario, but it's like, oh yeah, it's such a common habit and pattern that we are almost taught to listen to respond, listen to what to say next, you know, all the things that you were saying there. But I think if we look at listening not as a static thing, but as a dynamic process, that we can actually work on and change how we listen, that's kind of a cool idea.
And I think it also ties in with what we talked about last week with empathy too. It's like sitting in that, like sitting in the experience and not having to think about what I'm going to say next. Right. Just sitting in the experience, knowing that whatever's going on is right and perfect in that moment. And like you said, it's a static, I mean, it's not a static thing. It's like this fluid sort of walking through an experience sort of flow to it.
Yeah.
You'd think we actually planned all these things to connect to one another. Yay. It's working.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Here's a little more. Listening versus hearing. This is such a complex topic. There are so many different directions that we could go with this, but I'm going to go in one direction in particular because I think it is probably at the root of most of the complexity of our communication, let's say, issues as people. I think this is somewhat universal. We all have so much to say, I think, because we are all looking for a place that we can share who we are. And yet so often we show up somewhere and try and say something and it is met with resistance, which often makes us feel like we need to back our point, kind of stand our ground and double down on what it is that we feel to be true. Let's add to that the fact that most of us, when we are listening to respond. We're not listening to actually comprehend. We're listening to respond to what the other person is saying. We're listening for our chance to jump in with what we think is important. And let us not forget about the difference between actually listening and hearing. You can hear something. I notice this with the young children in my life all the time, that there is an act of hearing. The words come in one side and right out the other. There is very often not an act of listening, the processing that goes on. And so hearing something versus actual listening are two totally different actions. So when somebody else shows up with an idea that they think is important and it seems or feels different than the idea that we show up with that we think is important, all of a sudden we have this bumping up against each other of ideas. When in reality, What most of us are looking for is a place to simply express. But we have been shown it is not safe to simply express, that we feel like we have to double down on what it is that we feel or know to be true. And so instead of just showing up to express, we're showing up to make a point. And so often this gets met with that same exact energy. Someone else showing up to make a point. They're trying to express their feeling, what they know or feel to be true. We're trying to express what we know or feel to be true. And so we're bumping up against each other. And in this lies the opportunity for the week. The opportunity is showing up, listening, showing up in a way that allows for other people to simply express themselves. This is a complete shift of dynamic that any of us are really ever used to, and it will have an immediate impact. I know this because I try it so often, just showing up as a space for others to share and express themselves, and it's like this shock. They almost don't know what to do with it, but feeling this space to express, they will show up feeling as if they can express at a much deeper level than if we had shown up in any other way. The opportunity this week in listening is to create a shift of experience by being the place where people feel like they are actually seen, where they can actually express openly. Listening versus hearing. The opportunity is huge. And in doing this, not only do we create a deeper connection with them, but you now also then, once they are complete, you also have this space now to express more fully. And so when we recognize that listening is more important most of the time than speaking, when we realize that instead of looking for our chance to jump in, that we have the opportunity to create a space for connection, we don't necessarily have less to say, but we have a greater recognition of when it is time to say it. And I know that all of this stems from our innate human desire to have a place to belong. And so we are constantly testing whether this is that place. So our opportunity this week in listening is to be that place, to be the place where people feel like they can belong.
I like
Good
I
stuff.
like the idea of showing up without the need to be right, without the need to appear as if I'm intelligent or in the know. Just showing up and saying, I'm here with nothing. And that's okay. Just presence. I like that. That's what I got out of that first part.
The part that struck me, and it was so interesting, like these ideas are basic in their presentation, but they're so deep in their application.
Yeah.
And what struck me was that this idea that we all have this innate desire to express. And so that I think obviously stems from, or maybe not so obviously, but stems from this creative urge within us. You know, this divine presence that's in us, always wanting to express and to grow and to make itself known. And so that sometimes that kind of gets in the way of listening. In an unhealthy sort of scenario, but in the way you presented that we show up and allow others create this container for others to do that, to express themselves, then it creates this really amazing connection. Then we can then express ourselves from this space of connection and not this space of I want to like Chris was saying, I want to look smart. I want to do this. I want to coming from all these different sort of motives that kind of ooze of lack and limitation and issues with like worthiness and wanting to appear whatever. But if we have created this container where we've allowed others to show up and express and listen, then we can do the same. And then we're doing it from a space of connection, not from a space of overcompensation, which, I mean, Lord knows I've done that a million times. Probably did it twice today. But it just fosters this deeper connection. And that doesn't mean that every conversation has to be like Immanuel Kant philosophy or ethics or something, but it's that habit, a way of showing up. And you can be talking about, the the Washington beating Dallas. But it's this sort of, it's just a different tone when we really fostered this deep connection with others. It doesn't really matter what the topic is. It's just the presence and energy that we show up, this space of listening.
Yeah. When I think when we were speaking things that were divinely inspired, like to be able to go back and watch myself say all that again, I spent some time today editing that video. So it's not like any of this was new. And I was the one who said it, but to like go back without any agenda and just listen and absorb this, like, oh, wow, that's even way deeper than I realized when I was saying it. Mm-hmm. That idea that our desire to express can actually get in the way of making connections, of being like our desire to express can actually be the thing that gets in the way of us having a place to express.
Right.
Wow. How profound that is in the science of mind teaching that so often is viewed as if it is this teaching that's all about me and how I create and how I show up and how I utilize universal principles to change my life. And all of that is pointed this way. And there is a necessity to that. And I think, there's a lot of really good reason why, I can't change other people. So yeah, I need to look at me. I need to look at what are my beliefs and look inward. And, we are on this evolution, and part of that we're recognizing more and more here is how does me doing that impact those around me and the space that we are creating together? Mm-hmm. And I'm sure I've said it here, probably this is episode 42. I'm sure I've said it at least 42 times that if the last year has taught us anything, it's that we're not in a bubble. We're not by ourselves, that we are yearning for a coming back together in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. But the universe is begging for us to learn how to play nice together again, how to be with each other, right? And what if we were the thing, like to realize, man, I could be the thing getting in my way of wanting to be of being with other people.
Yeah. Oh. Well, and I think about imagine if just an example of spiritual communities, and I think a lot of communities do a really great job of doing this, but imagine if everyone made an intention of showing up this way, and just imagine just the up-leveling of expression, the up-leveling of creativity, the up-leveling of just everything, even in the context of our CSL communities. Talk about a world that works for everyone. Like Chris was saying at the very beginning, my God, that would just crack open that very real possibility just by the simple shift of how we express ourselves and how we allow others to express themselves in this context of community, whether it's a spiritual community or just your individual life and your interactions. It just would up level everything. This is like a big idea, big I idea.
Yeah. For sure.
Well, hello, folks. We are not done yet, but we just want to take a little quick second to talk about all the offerings that we have here at Soul Evolution Collaborative. So if you haven't really got the idea or not, we have an amazing, fun time, not only putting this together, but talking about these amazing ideas, of the science of mind, these ideas that foster not only our personal transformation, but our communal evolution. So what's going on with SEC? So of course, since you're watching this now, you know that on Tuesdays at 7:00, we have Truth Be Told. It's where we sit around and talk about life and spiritual stuff and how we can actually apply these things to our everyday lives. Wednesday, we have Unwind Wednesdays, and this is a great opportunity to participate in spiritual practice. It's our meditation that happens on Wednesdays. And on Thursday is the gathering, and this is at 7:00. And this is an opportunity to take the ideas of the week and sit down with other people in our community and other people that want to take a deeper look at some of these ideas. So it's an amazing opportunity to be in some small group discussion about this. And we always go away on Thursday nights thinking, my goodness, this was the best night ever. And it just gets better every week. Really learning how to take these principles and really put feet to them and activate them in our lives. So that's what's going on. For all of that, hop on over to our website, soulevolutioncollaborative.org. You'll find all those events and how to sign up for them, sign up for the links. Once you sign up there, the links will be sent to you and you can participate. So we have some new things coming up. I don't want to give it away right now, but some new and upcoming ways to participate in large group and also to kind of up-level our experience, not only of the spiritual life, but interaction with others. So let's get back to the show.
Listening versus hearing. This is a big one for me. I have to be honest. This one hits a little too close for home. This is something that has come up in my life on more than one occasion. Now, in the interest of being open, authentic, and possibly being some benefit to anybody else out there who's experiencing anything like what I went through, I'm going to speak candidly. So the first time in my life where I really learned the idea of listening was towards the end of my college days. This is over 20 years ago. I'll leave it at that. And what was going on? For me, I want to call it a minor psychosis. But for me back then, it didn't feel minor. Now, in hindsight, it seems like pretty small. Like, how was that ever such a big problem? But for me back then, what was going on was when I was having conversation with somebody, I couldn't tell which eye to look at. I knew I should be looking people in the eyes when I'm having conversation, but my mind started having a hard time knowing which eye to look at. And it really became kind of an obsession. Whenever I was having conversations with people, instead of listening, I was wondering, do I look really strange to this person? Do I look crazy? What's going on? It was really, really challenging for me back then. And there's lots of other factors. My life was turbulent, to say the least. My lifestyle was not the most healthy. My choices weren't great. And so there was lots of things that were probably contributing to what I call a minor psychosis. However, it was a big deal. So luckily, I confided in a friend, and the friend told me, he's like, dude, just stop worrying about your eye thing and just listen to the person that you're talking with. And that's when I realized through all that time, I wasn't listening to people. So people were having a hard time having conversations with me because I wasn't fully present, because I was so spun around and lost in my own head and my own thoughts. So that was huge. And I'm still very grateful to that friend. Really pulled me out of a kind of a dark spot that I was in. Now fast forward about 20 some years, and here I am right now. And I'm finding myself at times kind of busy. I've got thoughts going through my head. I've got school coming up. I've got a talk to give or a segment to film like this for Truth Be Told. And my mind is thinking ahead about what it needs to do, what it's going to work on, what ideas I need. And at that same time, I'm doing chores. I'm cooking dinner, shopping, or folding laundry, whatever it is. I'm multitasking. Add on to that a wonderful partner, 2 wonderful kids that also deserve my attention. And as they're talking to me, I have been finding myself not being fully present because I am thinking ahead about the other things that I have to do. So it's really, so often when I'm giving a message of any type, I say, and I know like I'm not really speaking to anybody out there. This is really talking to myself. But this week, this couldn't be more true. So let's get into a couple tools to help with this. First off, hands down, without this, none of it matters. So the main tool is intention. Setting that intention that I am going to be fully present with everybody I listen to. And then after that, asking questions. Asking questions that are open-ended. The yes and no questions, quite often, they send a subtle message that we already know the answer. We're not really there to hear the answer. So asking open-ended questions. And then after you do that, listening with what is a mindfulness practice called beginner's mind. Listening as if you know nothing about what they're going to say, what the answer is. Listening as if you don't know anything at all about the conversation about them. And listen until they are completely done talking before you respond, and not trying to formulate an answer while they're speaking. Just listening with a genuine openness and curiosity about what it is that they're going to talk about. I've heard it also said that you should listen twice as much as you speak. 2 ears, only 1 mouth. I found that this is also powerful. A lot of people might think if I'm only talking half as much as I listen, and if everybody's doing that, well then pretty soon nobody's talking. I can assure you that'll never happen. And what I've noticed for myself when I'm doing that, and I actually try to shoot for 3 times as much listening as I do talking, I find that when I do talk, when it's my turn, what I have to say is from a deeper place because I've been fully present and listening to what's being said. So I hope those tools help. For me, intention, and I have to constantly remind myself, hey, I'm not being present right now. Zero back in. It makes a huge difference. That's what we're talking about this month is genuine connection, authentic connection. So if you want to have authentic and great personal relationships, set that intention to be fully present with those that you're talking to.
I had to laugh at the Chris's goal is to listen 3 times more than he talks because he is in the perfect place to practice that because with Dan and I, we have a little bit. I think maybe we need to practice that, Dan.
I was thinking the same thing. Like, oh man,
No,
damn.
He's been practicing on us the whole time.
I know. I didn't know it was.
But the thing that I know for real. But the thing that struck me, Chris, was I love that the tool of listening with a beginner's mind. It's so basic, and oftentimes I want to listen with the intention of knowing everything. Or I've already made up my mind that I know what's best in this situation. I've already made my mind. What is my best advice is going to be once you stop talking. And so, but yeah, that beginner's mind, just even when you said it created, I just felt this kind of opening of the space, like that anything is possible. Like, and that means that anything this person says may in fact expand my own understanding of not only my life or what's going on. So it becomes less about fixing or whatever, but more about being open to possibilities, which is, we talk about that, this world of limitless possibilities, this realm of limitless possibilities. And we already have our mind's made that this is the answer, then it really closes that off. So yeah, that's a great tool. And of course, the listening 3 times more than the speaking. We'll work on that, but we'll work on the beginner's mind first. That might be easier attained.
Yeah. Well, and it makes me realize too, the old pattern of listening to know what to say next has just turned into the new pattern of listening how to respond correctly.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's like, oh, dang, is it still the same pattern, just different phrases, different words? Like, is it still the same habit? Like, I'm like, oh, yeah. Because just because I'm not saying it out loud doesn't, like if I'm sitting there listening and still having the same, like, well, my professional opinion, or like, like the practitioner mind of asking questions that get, someone to kind of find their way to the root of what it is we're talking about. There is this process behind that of kind of like thinking through, all right, well, what question do I ask here? And it's like, oh yeah, is that really just the same pattern? Just asking questions instead of making statements, and then it's like, oh, just because I'm not saying it out loud doesn't mean I'm not thinking it. Huh. Wow. So, but showing up with a beginner mind, like showing up empty, showing up as a open space is totally different. And not that we haven't, not that we can't, but it's just, I think it is a constant practice, especially for those of us who are so inspired that we have so much to say.
Oh, geez. Is that what we're spinning now?
Oh, they gave us a show. I don't know. I mean,
for real. We gave our own self a show. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, I will say it's a trip when you're able to just like show up and like listen to somebody with that beginner's mind. Like people will blow your mind when you give somebody just free reign, just to keep going. It's you discover some like kind of profound stuff that I think they're discovering with you. And we talked a little bit in the last segment about people want to express, and so creating that space and just letting people like get it out. It's a profound gift to offer somebody. And again, listening with that, I mean, beginner's mind is great for so many different things, but when you've given somebody carte blanche to just spill their guts, like it's amazing what you'll get to hear. Sometimes people spill too much, if there's such a thing. I wouldn't say though. I love it.
I mean, I just like how the conversations this month, like each week is like a deeper, I don't know what to call it, but just another layer in building this connection. And I think that's also, we talked about, like, you talked about this innate desire to belong and to connect and to be our authentic selves. And so, I mean, just going through the layers of all of what we've been talking about each and every week, it's really kind of strips away all the fluff. It's like, this is it. This is if we could really practice these things, man, I mean, it'll be like some next level stuff, not only individually, but like collectively in community, and the type of stuff that I think our world is wanting to birth into being in response to the things that we see. It's like these tools are like the thing. It's not some complex sort of manifesto that we have to figure out or formula or anything like that. But these are the key to fostering that and to creating that. And I don't know, if a few of us can get really good at it, then we can pull people along with us. I think that's the adventure in spiritual communities, and specifically our community and our teaching and philosophy is like, man, if we can tap into some of these things, I mean, the world, it just opens up for the type of world that we want to live in and want to foster for the people that come after us.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah. I love, it's so amazing to me how simple some of this is. You know, if we look back over the last couple of weeks and how all of these weekly topics tie so directly into each other with that idea of having the willingness to be vulnerable enough to do it differently.
Yeah.
Right? To break the habit of doing the thing that keeps us comfortable, doing the thing that keeps us feeling safe. You know, having the willingness to enter into a new way of being with other people.
Yeah.
That might require being in momentary discomfort, that might require stepping into spaces that haven't felt safe in the past, and realizing that there is a new way to do this, and that moving through that discomfort, we find that we really didn't have such a discomfort about it, that it was really just a thought of ours. And the same about things that have not felt safe, moving through what felt not safe and realizing, oh, it is safe, but having the vulnerability, having the vulnerability to show up listening differently, because our habit is what has kept us comfortable, showing up in that same pattern of, you know, listening to respond, or listening how to fix, or listening to make our own opinion, to prove ourselves, or hardly hearing at all and thinking about all the other tasks that need to get done.
Yeah.
Those are the patterns, the habits that we've developed that keep us in our own sense of security, right? But to have that vulnerability, like week 1 of this month, vulnerability, to be vulnerable enough to like, oh yeah, I guess it's okay to do that different this time. And then just the little steps each time, you know. Yeah, I think you're right on that. It wouldn't take much to literally change the world.
Not at all.
Yeah. What came to me in that a little bit is the idea of, you know, when we're looking forward to the future, thinking about things that we want to manifest in our lives, we always need to be asking the why, because that's not usually that thing that we think it is. It's what we're going to experience because of that thing. So when we try to get to the why, I think that could be a big part of our communication when we're, you know, talking with people, trying to find solutions to our collective challenges, where, you know, 2 different sides to a same thing, seeing both of them seeing it from a place of fear. You know, when we express what it is that we feel, if we can narrow it down and get to the why, what is it that we really want to get to accomplish through our views, I think both sides would see we're aiming for the same thing. We just have different, you know, opposing ideas of how to get there. But if we can, you know, create authentic connection and listening, then I think we, you know, certainly onto something to where we can get to that collective why that I believe is a lot more aligned than we think.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're trying to do with this community, you know? So, man, if we could be on the forefront of like world change or world domination, as we like to call it. But I mean, not world domination, but man, I mean, to be in this space, to be able to not only learn these things and practice them, but then to share those things that we've learned and those tools with others. It's some big stuff brewing. Some big stuff.
Yeah. Yep. And I think some of the best way to share those is to do it.
Yes.
The only way.
The application is the application. A great man once said.
That's right. Yep. Yeah. It is the application. Oh, so thank you so much, as always, for being with us and playing with us this Tuesday night. It is one of our greatest experiences coming together Tuesday night with y'all and getting to share in this. This is literally the best job in the world. I couldn't imagine doing anything else. So thank you again. And if you would like to explore this topic deeper in a conversation with others of like-mindedness, we have an event every Thursday evening called The Gathering, which is where we come together to bring together our personal, spiritual development and community and start a conversation around that week's topic. And so this Thursday, we will jump into some conversation all about the depth of listening and the opportunity that is available to us in doing that. So we would love to see you there. You can sign up for that on the website, soulevolutioncollaborative.org. You can sign up for The Gathering. And also, if you do enjoy this mission and this message, we would greatly appreciate any support that you can offer, whether that is attending, participating, or financial support. We are here because of you, for you, and we like to say that this movement is here because of those who have come before us. They have paved the way and also paid the way for us to be here. So we would like to continue doing the same thing, paying the way to make sure that this message continues and is available in the world in another 100 years. So if you are able to give in any way financially, we would greatly appreciate it. This is our ministry to the world. So if you are able to give in any way, you can do that at soulevolutioncollaborative.org as well. There's a donation button in the menu at the top of the page. So thank you again so much. If you want to join in conversation with us on Thursday night, you can do that on the website. And for everyone else, we will see you next week.